Tyler, we know that job seekers need to tell their story, or on LinkedIn, people need to tell about their story in the About section. Why it is important to not just navigate, be a kind of a master of telling the stories, because we know that people will be captured with that stories. Is there any techniques you can give?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, when you look at the story, that's what's going to make you unique, right? Because I have a story, you have a story, and that also is what makes your credibility, your credentials relatable. It's what makes it emotional, right? One of the things that I always share in my story is I was a college athlete. I used to play college football, and I also used to play basketball overseas in Asia. And so, any sports fans or anyone that has played sports, immediately we have an immediate connection because that's part of my story. And also one of the things that I look at too when it comes to business or whether it's a job seeker looking for an open position, you always have to ask yourself, what makes me different? What's my unique
Yeah.
competitive advantage in business and also in this position? And if you think about it, if it's a really great opportunity or if you're in the marketplace in the business, there's going to be a lot of great credentials for a lot of great applicants, right?
Yes.
And so what can I do outside of maybe great credentials that really is going to allow me to stand out? And that's where the story comes in. And so what I always teach people is you really want to get clear on what your story is, maybe on like a 15-second soundbite of if you're going to a networking event and you're connecting and meeting with people, tell me who you are, a little bit about yourself and kind of what it is that you do. You should have a condensed version of that. You should also understand and be able to describe your story more on a extended version. Let's say if it is on a 30, 60-minute interview, you can be able to talk on it maybe 2 to 3 minutes, a little bit extended. And then also, too, you can use that for podcasts as well if you're on Zoom calls with other individuals as well. And then, if you have the floor of maybe 60 minutes and beyond, and you have the opportunity to go into your story on a much deeper level, understand what are the details that you want to share, what are the most important parts of your story that you want to share, and why is it relevant? Because that is going to get refined over time. Because as you go through it, one of the things that I tell people as well is understand what are the most memorable milestones and memories within your career and within your life that's relevant to the current situation, right? And so if you write down all your memories, both positive and negative, and just accomplishments,
Yeah.
mistakes, that's going to give you a really good timeline of a snapshot of your life. And then from there, you can really select the two or three moments or accolades in your life that you can really highlight, and you can kind of pick and pull from that as you speak to different people and make it relevant to them. And that's what's going to make you relatable. That's what people are going to remember. And at the end of the day, when you are connecting with people, it's all about building a relationship.
Yes.
And you can tell people statistics, stats, and why you're so great and all these different things. But at the end of the day, people are going to remember your story. They're
Yeah.
going to understand what is relevant to them and what's also that they can relate with. And so this is just another way that you can stand out. And also in business as well, I'll end with this as well. As you see a lot of restaurants doing this as well, Amir, is that, if there's 10 restaurants selling pizza, which one are you going to choose? They're all relatively the same for the
Yeah.
consumer, but you're going to choose the one that, not only looks the best, has the best reviews, but if there is a story that really resonates with you and is really relevant to you, that's going to make you stand out. And even though they may not have the best pizza out of all those 10 selections, you're
Yeah.
going to make you're going to choose the option that you feel like is the best fit for you. And so it just personalizes who you are as a human being. So tap into that because once you get your story down,
Mhm.
you're now a one of one individual and no one else can take your story and no one else can copy your story as well.
Because there's only one person and there's one story of you. You cannot, they cannot copy it.
Right.
Is there any technique in how to build how to write, or it's based on practice? You write, you tell, you practice. Is there anything that you recommend, or anything in your book that you've mentioned about this part?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, all great stories have a beginning, a middle, and an end. So you really want to know what are the main points you want to deliver. And like I said before, you're really clear on what are those accolades and those accomplishments that you've achieved in your life, and really have a timeline of great memories,
Hmm.
great accomplishments, and again, even memories that have maybe been negative for you as well. What are those moments? I call them why me moments, where you're asked, you look up and ask the Lord, why is this happening to me?
Yes.
Those are the moments that are usually going to force you to become the person you are today and that are relevant to your story. I'll give you an example. For me, as a speaker, as a 2 or 3 year old little boy, I was speaking and presenting to imaginary audiences, even as a little boy. I always knew I was called to speak,
Yeah.
right? So that this is a specific moment where not a lot of people can say that they've had that same experience. And
Correct.
then also too, when I was born at birth, I had an excess of fluid in my ears, and so um, I struggle to speak and say certain words. And so, this, even at a young age, the enemy wanted to take my voice away as well. And so, one of the things that led to that is when I was in second or third grade, I sounded different than the other kids in my school. So then what happened was they wanted to give me advanced, time and training and private speech training
Yeah.
so I could develop my words and become a better communicator. But even that negative, quote unquote, why me moment forced me to have private one-on-one speaking coaches, even in the third grade. And so, again, that has led me now to where I am, where I'm an international award-winning speaker. And again, those are parts of the timeline that a lot of people overlook,
Yeah.
but those are parts of the timeline that have been unique to me. And say those things. And we all have those moments, right? If you've gone through any negative adversities, what are those moments? What did you learn from it? How has it shaped you into the person you are today? Because usually those negative moments speak a lot more about your character and who you are as an individual than just the positive ones. And then also, too, what were some of the happiest moments of your life? Was it having a kid? Was it getting married? Was it receiving a reward? What does that look like? Maybe it was great. If it's a entry level job seeker, then it's like, is it graduating high school, graduating college? Is it a project that you worked on? What do you like to do in your free time? Develop certain things that allow you to develop these passions and create those moments throughout your life in a positive way, because you're just adding that to your timeline. You're adding that to your story. And I'll end with this is to have a great story. You want to continue to stay curious. You want to live a curious life because, one of the things that my mentor taught me early on was, you know, live an interesting life, right? Do things that you've always wanted to do. Take the risk, take the trip, go outside your comfort zone and do things that maybe a lot of people are quote unquote afraid to do or they won't do. And be a part of that, because once you start doing those things, then that's where you can start adding these moments to your
Mhm.
timeline, start adding these moments to your story. And then once you look back at it, it's like, man, I've accomplished so many great things. You've experienced so many amazing things throughout your life, and these are things that you can share about, people can relate with. And then at the end, it's pretty hard to say no to someone who has the credentials, can speak about their story at a very high level, and also do it in a way that is authentic and
Yes.
genuine to them.
Yeah, curiosity, mindset, and being authentic is very important nowadays. So thank you for that, Tyler. And again, for the audience watching or listening, if you have any other tips, you can leave them below. So tune in next time for another great question with Tyler.